It's time. Time to rank every NFL team from the worst to the best. It's time to separate the pretenders from the contenders. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and every last one of you jabronis. It's Mitch here with my official NFL Week 14 Power Rankings. And as always, these aren't like every other set of power rankings you see on the internet. These are not only the most electrifying power rankings on the internet, they are the most honest. They are the most real. And they are the most accurate. If you're ready for the best damn NFL power rankings on the internet, Gronk, spike the like button. Don't be a jabroni and subscribe. We're post-Thanksgiving, guys. And you know what that means. It means it's time for the real football season to begin. It's time to see who the real teams are. Let's get to it. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my list. Let's go. The worst team in the NFL entering post-Thanksgiving football. Week 14. We're back with the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, we had a little bit of a short period for the Raiders to sneak to the bottom and take that number 32 because they really did deserve it. And honestly, you could argue the Raiders or the Titans. Either way, I think you're fine. Either way, they are both absolutely horrific, horrendous, awful, no good, terrible, pathetic. Really pathetic is the word. Last week, I thought it was a spot for the Titans. Here's the thing, right? With a normal bad team, you're at home against a mediocre to maybe they're pretty good Jacksonville team. You're getting 6.5, 6 points with a bad team, but it's in the division. It's at home. Last couple of weeks, Tennessee showing some signs of life. Number 1 overall pick quarterback looking like he's on the incline. No, the game was not competitive. The game was not close. Jacksonville, in fact, won that game, and Trevor Lawrence didn't turn it over, which is a first. More on him later and his long hair. The Tennessee Titans are terrible. They are historically bad. They don't run the ball well. They don't protect the quarterback. Their young quarterback is inconsistent, erratic, and turnover happy. Their receiving core is the absolute bottom of the barrel. Their corner depth chart, has anyone checked it? It is one of the worst I've ever seen. They have practice squad players out there. So the Titans, they're so bad. Like, I don't think people really truly understand how bad the Titans organization and franchise is. They're going to have back-to-back first overall picks. That is horrendous. So I have Tennessee at number 32. At number 31, the Raiders. Besides Brock Bowers and Max Crosby, I don't respect anything about this team. I like Pete Carroll as a guy. I think he'd be a heck of a mentor, a great coach, a good guy. I like Pete Carroll, right? I like his vibrant old man energy. But at the same time, bro, you got to know when it's time to hang him up. You got to know when it's time to walk away. You still feel like you have that vibe, that energy that vigor to go on. But you're simply past it. Like, hang it up, bro. You're done. You're finished. You're done. And Geno Smith, man. Wow. Talk about a fall off. It needs to be studied. The offensive line of the Raiders is still catastrophic. The worst offensive line on a weekly basis in the NFL. Brock Bowers made one of the stupidest, dumbest catches I've ever seen in my life. One hand, don't know how the ball didn't touch the ground. His fingertips were holding it up right off the turf. Geno throws the most horrendous fade ball I've ever seen, and Brock Bowers catches it. Max Crosby, please leave. Please ask for a trade. Like, seriously, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're not doing your legacy any favors, bro. You're not doing your long-term ability in the NFL. Like, you're not going to stay with this level of fire in the pit of your stomach forever on that piece of donkey crap team. You've got to leave. Leave. Somebody please trade for Max Crosby. I beg you. Seriously. At number 31, the Raiders are so bad. It's actually unbelievable how bad they are. This was a team, guys, that people were picking to go to the playoffs. For real, some people. On national television. At number 30, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns do have an awesome defense. They do have by far the best defensive player in football. They did lose Malik Collins to injury, so that will hurt their juggernaut defensive front. But I think one of the low-key things about the Browns this year has been how effective their draft was. But it just goes to show that if you don't hit on a quarterback, it really doesn't matter how good the rest of your draft is. Right? You look at the Patriots draft 2 years ago, and they basically only hit on Drake May. Every other pick was a piece of crap, and they still are where they're at, right? Because they just had a great draft around Drake May this year. But Cleveland kind of had that draft this year where they picked up a nice tight end who could be a feature weapon in their offense. They picked up a starting caliber running back that looks the part. They picked up a destructive defensive lineman in Mason Graham. They picked up a rookie of the year candidate in Carson Schlesinger. This was a really nice draft for Cleveland, but both quarterbacks they picked, neither one looks like the long-term solution. I will still give them credit in the mid-rounds and late rounds for throwing some darts at quarterbacks to see if either one of them could work out. I think that's a fair strategy, okay? But now this year, they have an opportunity, potentially in 2026, to pick up the quarterback of their choosing and to support that guy with the draft that they've already just had. So I think Cleveland is in a good spot compared to a lot of the bad teams. They have a generational player on defense. It feels like their defense is still going to be very, very good for the next couple of years as long as Garrett and Denzel Ward are there and Mason Graham and Schlesinger are on their way up and Jim Schwartz remains as the DC. But man, they really have to figure some things out offensively. And I think my thing is, do we keep going with Stefanski? Because Stefanski, he made some critical, boneheaded decisions against San Francisco. And the thing is, like, you would think that Stefanski would understand what type of ball club he has, like what type of team he really has. It's a defensive team. You don't need to be going for it on 4th and 1. Make the 49ers earn their points. I'm always frustrated watching that. Like, no offenses have really dominated you or moved the ball on you consistently when you're at home in Cleveland. And yet you're just giving up short fields to a Kyle Shanahan ran offense with the human glitch, Christian McCaffrey. Like, make them earn stuff, seriously. Offensive line needs some rebuilding. Receiving core needs some rebuilding. Quarterback needs to be a hit. But I think Cleveland, for sure, at the bottom of the league is in one of the better positions. But I do have serious issues with Stefanski. And my thing is, like, I'd love to keep Jim Schwartz. And it's crazy we're talking about a 2-time coach of the year this way. But ultimately, when we really look at it, Stefanski wasn't really truly responsible for the second coach of the year. Sure, Joe Flacco had a great run on offense, but that was about the defense that year. The first time around, we may be looking at that saying that was more of Baker Mayfield than maybe we recall. So at number 30, Cleveland. At number 29, the New Orleans Saints. I really don't have much to say about the Saints. I think the evaluation is happening right now with the Saints. Kellen Moore, is he the coach? Is he the guy? Is he the leader of men that we need and want? So far, mixed results. I'd love to hear from Saints fans and their opinion on Kellen Moore so far. I think offensively, he's brought some nice things. I don't think that he's under a lot of pressure. I don't think that he's given a lot of talent. So it is kind of hard to say. I don't think, though, that he's been all that much better than what they had last year. Tyler Shuck, he's under evaluation. Is he the future of the franchise at quarterback? He certainly feels like a guy that could be a starting caliber quarterback for the next few years. And I think at the very least, he's a very capable bridge quarterback. So in my opinion, I think you take Shuck into next year because this Saints roster needs a complete reconstruction. Their best players are all old. Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis, right? Even guys like Carl Granderson, guys like Justin Reed, guys like Alvin Kamara, they're like flirting with 30, 31 years old. They're not that young, right? Olave is one of the younger guys that you can build around, and a couple of the offensive linemen. But this roster needs a complete reconstruction. And I think they need like an entire draft class, an entire free agency period to build a little bit more up to being like a mediocre roster. Because it just feels like before you can even, if you're not picking first, right, which they're not, it's going to be hard to get a quarterback. Like, I'd rather get an elite talent on offense or defense, see what Shuck can do for a season, and then, like, go from there and kind of make your decision from there. But they're in a tough spot because their roster and their build has been hanging on for dear life for the last few years, where they're an old, worn-out roster, and they just don't have a lot of fundamental, foundational pieces to build around. At number 28, the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are very frustrating. And again, a lot of people are pointing to this quarterback position. Brosmer, McCarthy, Wentz. Wentz damn near died on the field for this football team. McCarthy, they just make up an injury about the kid every time he plays bad. And now they have a CFL quarterback out there in Brosmer throwing 4 picks in Seattle. But I think the bigger investigation needs to be had with where did Kevin O'Connell go? I'm not impressed with his offense. I'm not impressed with his philosophy. I'm not impressed with his lack of reliance on the run. Run the freaking ball, dude. You've got not even an NFL caliber player at quarterback, and you're throwing the ball with this kid on the road in Seattle and asking to block the Seattle front 40 times in a game. Jordan Mason's averaging 6 yards a carry every week, and we don't run the ball. And then you go for it when the game's 3-0. You have a chance to tie it up and extend the game and make it interesting going in the second half. And you go for it, and he throws a pick 6, and you're done. The game's over. So I think Kevin O'Connell has had a horrible season. I think that their decision-making in the offseason has been horrible, right? You really look at, and I don't think they've gotten enough heat for this. Maybe they do in Minnesota in the local markets. I haven't talked enough about it, and I think I need to now. And I don't think a lot of mainstream outlets are talking about it. The Vikings had a horrible offseason when you really look at it, and it was applauded by a lot of people. I was one of those people that was like, I kind of understand why they're doing this, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't love a lot of these players that they're picking up. Like, Jonathan Allen past his prime, right? Javon Hargrave past his prime. Putting big money into these players, right? Like, defensive linemen. They haven't been as good on the defensive line this year. They trade away Harrison Phillips because they didn't need him because they had too many defensive linemen. Well, why didn't you just keep Phillips and then not sign this guy to a 3-year, $30 million contract? You know what I'm saying? And then on offense, They try to reconstruct the offensive line, which kind of made sense, but you're bringing in a guy that's had like numerous concussions, is hurt all the time, and Ryan Kelly. Will Fries has kind of been like a one-hit wonder. He got hurt too, and he always gets hurt. And then Darisaw is always hurt now. And you just look at it and it's like, outside of the Jordan Mason move, did they make a good move? Oh, Isaiah Rodgers. Isaiah Rodgers was a great move, and that was one that I was actually extremely excited about because I thought Isaiah Rodgers was very underrated from Philadelphia. But, like, the Vikings have had a really bad offseason. I kind of feel like the Vikings in the front office are also pretty overrated. Like, when you really think about some of their decisions, you had Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold in your building last year, and you let both of them go for J.J. McCarthy, who is absolute booty cheek. And you saw him at practice, right? Like, Durkant loved J.J. McCarthy. He loved the Vikings this year. He won't talk about it anymore because he's upset about it. But, like, he didn't see the practice tape. He wasn't at the practice. Like, Kevin O'Connell was at the practice. He could have probably told somebody about maybe we should keep Sam Darnold. Instead, Sam Darnold goes to Seattle and they're one of the best teams in the NFC. So to me, like, so many bad decisions have led the Vikings here. And when you're really thinking about what the Vikings are going to be in future years, JJ's clearly not the guy. He's one of the worst quarterback prospects we've ever seen play. The defense is only getting older in key spots, right? Grenard, Cashman, Van Ginkel, Harrison Smith, obviously. Like, their defense is going to hit a point where it's not going to be stellar. Jefferson's kind of frustrated. Aaron Jones is about to retire. TJ Hawkinson's body is breaking down in front of our eyes. The Vikings are in a really tough spot. Like, they might be in one of the worst spots of any franchise. They could lose Brian Flores at any moment, and he might be their best coach. So, the Vikings are in a really bad spot, man. At number 27, the Giants. I think a lot of people want to believe that the Giants are in this brilliant rebuilding phase, but I think part of the problem is I don't think they have a very good GM. I think he's honestly, like, my honest opinion, and guys, this power rankings is the most honest I really am every week. Like, I honestly think that it's Joe Shane, right? Or something like that. It's Shane. Anyways, he gives me, like, he's a pussy, bro. Like, he gives me, like, kind of pathetic vibes. I don't know what it is. Every clip I see of this guy, he's indecisive. He doesn't know what he wants. He's asking his kids who he should pick. He doesn't even overrule anyone in a decision. Every good pick they made feels like it's Brian Daboll. He didn't even really want Jackson Dart. They got rid of Saquon Barkley. Like, does this guy know anything? Like, what is he doing? Like, I honestly, like, why does he have that job? Like, I swear to you, I am in no position to be an NFL general manager. I have no NFL experience as a scout. But, like, I think I would do a better job as a general manager than Shane. Honestly, I would probably do a better job than a few guys in the NFL. But, like, it's honestly pathetic. Like, what has he done? Like, he is so bad. I don't understand why he has a job and why Daboll gets fired. And then Kafka's definitely going to get fired, especially after that performance against the Patriots, which was pathetic. And then the Giants are just like, yeah, Jackson Dart seems like he could be kind of good, but I don't think he's going to be great. Like, I don't get the sense from Jackson Dart that he's going to be this top 10 quarterback. I could be wrong. I think he's fine. I think the offensive line's played well this year. I think the offense has actually played better than expected, no matter who the quarterback has been. The defense has been an absolute downright disaster. And you think about all the resources they've spent to that defense. Brian Burns, who's been stellar, by far their best defensive player. That was seemingly a good pickup. Dexter Lawrence has been a huge disappointment. Abdul Carter has decent numbers, but it doesn't feel like he impacts the game the way that you would expect from a stellar rookie. Kayvon Thibodeau's been hurt half the time, and I think he's always been a little overrated. You know, Okereke makes a lot of money. Javon Holland makes a lot of money. Paulson Adebo makes a lot of money. They've spent numerous draft picks, high draft picks, and capital in their corner position, Banks, safety position, Nubin, etc. They have a very highly invested defense that is one of the worst in football and one of the worst run defenses we've seen in recent seasons. So the Giants, I know that fans want to be very excited about having Malik Neighbors and Jackson Dart and Cam Scattaboo for whatever that running back is worth. I just think they are a little further away than people really want to say. Like, I don't see any heart there. I don't see any physicality there. I don't see a team that's organized or has a direction. I see a absolute pussy of a GM. Like, I don't know. We'll see who they hire as a coach. That's going to be a huge factor because this team feels like a team that is lost and needs new direction and a new culture. Like, they really need a culture. At number 26, the Jets. The Jets have actually been playing better, and I've been very critical of Aaron Glenn and this team, and I will continue to say that anyone who thought Justin Fields was going to be a good signing is an absolute jabroni. Like, I've been telling you, if you just watched his tape for like the last 5 years, for however long he's been in the NFL, there is not a single person that could tell me watching that tape that they thought he could be a franchise quarterback. So we knew that was going to be horrendous. And instantly they put in Tyrod Taylor, who I don't even know how he's still in the NFL, and he's better than Justin Fields. But I will say, they get rid of Quinnen Williams. They get rid of Sauce Gardner. Now, personally, I thought trading Quinnen Williams was kind of stupid. And that is looking like the trade that looked a little idiotic. Because Quinnen Williams looks great as a Dallas Cowboy. And Quinnen Williams is a very, very good player. And in that defense, he was playing very well. He was the number 1 graded run defender. But the thing is, the Sauce Gardner trade already to me looks like a home run. Sauce Gardner has not played great for the Colts. He's already hurt. I personally don't like the guy off the field in terms of his persona. I think he's a little bit of an odd guy. And then also, like, they're getting numerous high draft picks to rebuild this team and overall thing. Now, I don't think Aaron Glenn is a great coach, but the one thing I can say about him this year is he's improved the defense throughout the season. They play hard. They play physical, and there's something there. The offensive line is good. The defensive line doesn't get like pushed around like the Giants. They do play a feisty brand of football. They don't have a quarterback. Their receivers are terrible. They certainly need to rebuild aspects of this team. But there's something right now with the Jets where they're not going to be an easy just pushover team for the rest of the year. They're not on this level of the Titans or the Raiders. They have some sort of direction. They have some sort of vision. They have draft picks. They have capital. And I know that Jets fans have heard that all before. I personally don't think they have the right coach, but I don't think that he has been horrendous. Maybe early in the year he kind of was, but he's a first-year coach. Like, he needs some time. So number 26 is the Jets. Number 25 is the Falcons. The Falcons are in a terrible spot. They're like the Vikings, but almost in a worse position. Sure, Penix is better than McCarthy, but Penix is also injured, and he's been injured a million times before. You almost wonder if this guy's even going to play again. Like, he's had a million injuries at this point to his lower extremities. Like, I don't know if he's going to be able to run, move, manipulate the pocket, or do anything necessary to throw the football at the NFL level. And what he showed from last year to this year was kind of mediocre at best anyways. So I don't think he's really the guy, and they spent a high draft pick on him when they already paid Kirk Cousins. The Kirk Cousins thing, it's kind of hurting them right now. It was a decent swing last year to try and be competitive, but then they made that puzzling Penix pick to not help Cousins that season. And then this season, if anything, Cousins is kind of helping them be more competitive than they kind of want to be, because they're like, they suck. Like, it only hurts their entire draft capital. Now, obviously, the Rams have their first round pick, which makes this even worse. They traded for 2 edge rushers. Their defensive front and their pass rush has actually been better this year. They sack the quarterback. They get to the quarterback. And I think their philosophy there has been better. And I honestly think Ulbrich has been pretty good. But this team's in a terrible spot. They don't have a quarterback that's healthy, that's going to be a future franchise guy. Their defense is okay, but it's not stellar, right? And that some of their better players are getting older, like David Onyemata up front, Jesse Bates at safety, AJ Terrell at corner, etc. And this just feels like a team that is only going to get worse next year. Like, I don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Cousins will probably be gone. They don't really have a first-round pick to boost this talent pool. Sure, they have Drake London and Bijan Robinson and a decent offensive line. Like, Jake Matthews is only getting older. Like, the Falcons are kind of screwed right now. Like, they're in a really bad spot. They have a terrible head coach. The OC has not lived up to expectations. The best thing about them right now has been some of their younger defensive talent and what that defense has been able to do at times. But yeah, I mean, they're a disaster on so many fronts. Like, they thought they were going to be good this year. And I don't know why they thought they would be good the last 2 years. I don't know what made them believe that. Like, nobody, like, only they thought that. Like, it's weird. At number 24, the Cardinals. The Cardinals are that team that can play almost everyone close, but they lose every time. Like, they probably should have beat the Bucs, but they lost. You know, like, they turned it over twice in Bucs territory. They missed a chip shot field goal. The Cardinals are also in an awkward position, but the Cardinals will have their first round pick. The Cardinals will have a top 10 pick to maybe get another quarterback. Jacoby Brissett is probably going to be their quarterback next year, which Jacoby Brissett is actually playing some of the best football of his career. This might be the best sustained period of Jacoby Brissett's career since he kind of became like a borderline starting quarterback in the league. But again, he's a bridge option who is in his mid-30s. Like, he is not a starter for the long term. Kyler is going to be gone, likely traded. They'll get some capital from Kyler, probably like a second, maybe a late first. I don't know, but like, or a future first. I don't know exactly what Kyler's going to go for, but he's a quarterback that's a potential fringe franchise quarterback. So he'll get something by someone, right? And maybe the Falcons are a team that make that move, somebody like that. But like, the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon, I don't think he's proven enough over the last 2 to 3 years to give me any hope for him being your head coach. I don't hate him as a defensive coordinator. I don't hate him as a defensive philosopher, but I just don't think he's the guy. I think the best thing they do is like, they're maximizing this passing game. I think what they do offensively with this current personnel is pretty awesome. Their offensive line is mediocre at best. Their receiving core is, I guess it's underrated, but it only took until Jacoby Brissett started until we can kind of figure that out. They're working without James Conner in the backfield. The defense to me has been underwhelming, which is another reason why I think Jonathan Gannon should be gone. So the Cardinals need to make major decisions at quarterback and at head coach for the future here. And it feels like they're going to go through at least one more year of being pretty bad, especially when you consider who's in their division. San Francisco, LA, Seattle. These are franchises, teams, coaches. They're at the top of the game. They're not going anywhere. So the Cardinals, they should probably take their time. You know, wait till Stafford's gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Cardinals are at least in a position where they can talk themselves into, look, we're not winning this division anytime soon anyways. Let's take our time with this rebuild. Let's find another coach maybe potentially here. Let's go for a younger quarterback. Let's build this the right way. And I think what also hurts is the Cardinals tried to kind of push some chips in this year and tried to be a playoff team where they tried to get Calais Campbell. They tried to get Josh Sweat. They tried to make just marginal moves, Dalvin Tomlinson, to put them over the top, and it just hasn't paid off. So at number 24, the Cardinals, right now though, they're one of those teams that can stay in it, that can fight. They don't lose a lot of multi-score games. They lose a lot of one-score games, and they're just lacking like stellar game-changing talent on both sides of the football or stellar game-changing offensive or defensive coaching. Just feels like they're mediocre. They're just very mediocre. At number 23, okay, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I almost contemplated putting 24. Like, if you were to ask me, who is playing better and who would win a game between the Cardinals and the Steelers at this current point in time, I would maybe say the Cardinals. The only thing I could say about the Steelers is, like, the Steelers kind of find a way to win some of these games while the Cardinals find a way to lose. But if you were asking who's playing better offense, who's playing better defense, who looks like the more consistent team, it's probably the Cardinals. It's just that the records don't appear to be that way. The Steelers are really not good in any facet of football right now. Their run game is mediocre. Their pass game is just, it's dink and dunk. It screens. Like, it's Aaron Rodgers running his audibles and his timing patterns, and it's just not great. And then Rodgers just can't, he thinks he can do things that he used to do, and he can't. The O-line is not great. They're kind of below average, right? The skill talent is not good. Now they sign Adam Thielen, another old man that deserves to be in a retirement home. The defense is old as dirt. They're slow. They can't cover. They cut Darius Slay. Like, there's so many things with the Steelers. The Steelers are like, they need to realize that they're done. Like, their chance of doing anything legitimate is over. Like, they've been there for a while, and they fail to realize this. This team needs to be completely ripped down, torn down, and rebuilt. They need a new culture. They need a new philosophy. They need to get to a modern place. This team is stuck in, like, 2008. Like, we need a sustainable quarterback that we can build around. We need maybe an offensive philosophy, maybe a more explosive philosophy. We need to get rid of some of these older defenders. We need to trade TJ Watt. Like, we need to do something here. Like, Cam Hayward, maybe he can play one more year, right? Like, this team is old. They're past the point of no return. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Mike Tomlin is one of the most overrated coaches I've ever seen. What does Mike Tomlin really provide on a Sunday? Like, what edge does he provide? What edge does he bring? He's a great locker room negotiator. He's a great politician. But to me, as a coach, he's super overrated. He always has been from a philosophy and X's and O's standpoint. And I brought that up for years. Like 2016 BLV talking about this shit. Like, the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, they are just washed. They're finished. They're old. They're done. Like, they are all those things. They need to realize it, though. They're not making the playoffs. Like, I don't know if they even win another game. They're not good at all. Like, at all. At number 20, and they got embarrassed, man. Like, the Bills ran all over them. That doesn't happen in Pittsburgh to the Steelers. Are you kidding me? A team ran the same play over and over and over again. If you don't know it's Tomlin's time to go, it's time to go. Next, at number 22, the Washington Commanders. I actually really respect the Commanders the last couple weeks. I think Dan Quinn has done a great job. I think that Cliff is still, to me, like, Cliff is one of the top OCs in football. Like, I watch Washington every week, and I'm impressed with his offense. I'm impressed with their quick passing game. I'm impressed with their screen game. I'm impressed with their run game very consistently. I think they have one of the best run games in the NFL, despite having lackluster running back talent. Their offensive line played really well against Denver. Marcus Mariota is a quarterback that if I were in charge of an NFL team and I needed a bridge quarterback, I would sign Marcus Mariota. Like, that would be one of the things I would do. Marcus Mariota, 1 year, $11 million, $12 million, $15 million. He could be a Jacoby Brissett. Like, if I needed a guy for a season, Mariota is playing at a top 20 quarterback level this year. There's no debate about that. Like, I think his PFF grades, top 12. You look at EPA, you look at his stats, you look at how he's throwing the ball, you look at how he runs. He's one of the fastest quarterbacks in football. Like, yeah, he's a little older and he's not your franchise long-term guy, but man, that guy is a great backup. And, most of the year they've had a bad defense. Like, Washington's problem is mostly on defense. Their linebackers are slow as shit. They have no pass rush whatsoever. They can't really cover anyone for a sustained period, and they can't get to the quarterback. Like, when you can't cover anyone and you also can't rush the quarterback, like, you have a very bad defense. And that's just where Washington is at. They do not have the personnel to be a good football team, especially on defense. That's just what it is. Like, I don't look at Washington and say their coaching is really bad. Do I love Dan Quinn as a head coach? He's fine. I don't think he's anything special. I would actually prefer, if I were the Commanders, I would probably fire Dan Quinn and promote Cliff Kingsbury. I probably would do that. And find a different defensive coach. Honestly. Like, because I wouldn't want to lose Cliff and what we have with him and Jaden Daniels, because I don't think Jaden Daniels is as good as a lot of people think. I think that offense makes him look that good. And obviously Terry McLaurin is a night and day difference for this offense. But I still hate some of the decisions they've made. Like, all the capital to go after, like, Debo, who I'm not, like, a huge fan of anymore. You know, 2020 Debo? Sure. 2021 Debo? Yeah. This Debo, no, he's not the same guy. Like, Laramie Tunsil is playing very well, but his play's only going to decline. You know, going after guys like Bobby Wagner and Vaughn Miller, and I love Jonathan Jones, but these guys are like 35 years old, man. Like, these guys are old. Dietrich Wise, like, they're old as shit. Like, they played their best football in like 2017. You know what I'm saying? So, Washington is very old, especially on defense. But I look at them and I'm just like, I actually think they're a spoiler team down the stretch. I think their offense can move the ball. I think they have good balance. I think they have, with Terry in there, with Debo, with Ertz, the way he's playing, they've got a good, strong run game. Doesn't really matter the quarterback. They're probably going to score some points. Like, they could play spoiler to the Eagles. They could play spoiler to the Cowboys if these teams are not careful. So at number 22, I actually respect the Commanders right now. At number 21, the Bengals. The Bengals beat the Ravens. I don't know how much of it was the Bengals, how much of it was the Ravens. The Ravens choked up that opportunity as they typically do. A lot of turnovers, you know, a lot of bad football from Lamar Jackson, and a lot of inopportune plays. Isaiah Likely fumbling the ball in the end zone. But what I love watching from the Bengals, and the Bengals gave me that excitement again. The Bengals are one of my favorite teams because I love watching them at their best. I love watching Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. And I don't think Burrow looked quite like himself. There was just something missing. I think his accuracy appeared a little off. Maybe it was the arm strength. I'm not sure what it was, but he just didn't appear quite like Joe Burrow from last year. But man, their offense, T. Higgins comes back this week. They could go to Buffalo and win in a shootout, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like, Chase Brown in that run game, I think the ability of the offensive line and how much better they've gotten this year, and especially in the run game in the last like 5 or 6 weeks, is floating way under the radar. If this team is going to make a run, don't be surprised if it's because they run the ball really well against some of these teams that are just selling out to stop the pass. And then the defense, I think they've gotten some really good contribution. You think about what they've done from a coaching standpoint on that side under Golden. Like, they haven't had Hendricks in the last couple of weeks. Guys like Osai and Miles Murphy have really stepped up, and DJ Turner's playing phenomenal. And I just feel like they're playing a little bit more fundamentally sound, I would put it. Like, they don't have great talent at all. This is probably the least talented defense in the NFL. But they're just playing a little bit more like sound. They don't seem to get gashed, or like, you're not like, why is this guy wide open all the time? You know what I'm saying? So the Bengals actually legitimately have a chance to steal this division. If they could go to Buffalo and win, which is entirely possible given how many injuries the Bills have, given the track record of Bengals versus Bills, given that Chase and Higgins are healthy, this is very possible. The Bengals are probably not a team you want to see in the postseason. They're not a very well-rounded team. They probably would lose the first game they play. But that being said, they're still scary because it feels like in any given day, on any given Sunday, they could put up 35 and you're going to be struggling to match them. So don't get Joe Burrow hot. Don't get him cooking. Don't let him get that rust off. The Bengals need, they need to lose this week. If you're a fan of the Steelers, if you're a fan of the Ravens. So number 21, the Bengals. Number 20, the Miami Dolphins. I think the Dolphins, again, kind of slipping under the radar for how much they've improved throughout the course of the season, and that speaks to coaching. Teams that get better as the season goes on, that speaks to coaching. And I've given a lot of praise to Mike McDaniel this year because I just feel like too many people hate on him for no reason because he's kind of a nerd and he's a geek and he wears like capris and stuff and he wears glasses. But I think, the problem the entire time has been Tua is not a great quarterback and he's being paid like he's a great quarterback. And that has completely erased the talent edge that they had once upon a time when Tua was just a cog in the system. He was just the captain on an absolutely loaded, buttoned up ship. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had all these weapons. They had all this speed. They had a revolutionary offense. They had a lot of talent on defense. They had guys in their prime. Their defense has gotten older. They've lost some players. Their offensive line has completely been erased and ripped apart. They've lost Tyreek Hill for injury. Miami is not going to reach the playoffs. They have next to zero chance, but they have improved. They have picked up some wins. They have gotten more competitive. Their run game is probably top 10 in football. Their defense, though, I think deserves a lot of love. Their defensive coaching deserves a lot of love. This is not an extremely talented defense. Some of these younger guys are playing above their heads, right? The defense is playing very, very well in recent games, and I think that deserves a lot of love. And they're another team like the Commanders of the NFC. I could see them being a spoiler for a lot of these teams down the stretch. So at number 20, the Dolphins. At number 19, I have the Panthers, who just upset the Rams. Now, with the Panthers, it's hard for me to rank them that much higher because I don't see them as a playoff team. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. Do they have a chance to? Yes. If they can sweep the Bucs, I think they'll make it. But that's a lot to ask. Also, they're extremely inconsistent. 1 week on Monday Night Football, they go to San Francisco, they embarrass themselves. Brock Purdy plays terribly, and they still lose by double digits, and they fail to cover the spread. The next week, they're at home, they're more comfortable, and they beat the number one team in power rankings across the world, the Los Angeles Rams. But a lot of that upset came down to the Rams, not the Panthers, which is why I'm not truly invested in this victory. I'd love to say to Panthers fans, I like the Panthers. I like rooting for the Panthers. My best friend is a Panthers fan, so I constantly am rooting for the Panthers. But it's not like that win against the Rams was sustainable. Stafford threw a pick six. Stafford got his ball bounced off Derek Brown's head for an interception. Like, Bryce Young made some big throws on high leverage scenarios and downs on fourth down that just don't think they're going to do that often again. So it's like, yeah, you probably needed that to beat a team like the Rams, right? And they got that on that day. But this has just been the story of their season. 1 week, they pull it off against the Packers. The next week, they get demolished, destroyed by the Bills, right? They got demolished by the Patriots. Somehow they'll beat a better team than them. So, like, that's just the way the Panthers are. I do respect, their ability to bounce back. I think Bryce had a really good game against the Rams. I think their defense, I really respect their defense for their philosophy. I feel like they really make you earn every yard and every first down. They're not aggressive. They're very conservative, but they play fundamentally sound. They tackle. They don't give up big plays. They make you earn everything, and that's how they get stops, right? They'll create a negative play every once in a while. They'll get a turnover every once in a while. And then offensively, they run the ball well. They have a good offensive line. Now, McMillan, Coker, they've got some weapons. Bryce is okay. Like, the Panthers are like a competent team. You can't sleep on the Panthers. That's kind of what we've learned about them this year. And then at number 18, I've got the Ravens. The Ravens are extremely difficult to calculate. They've won most of their games with Lamar back. but they hadn't really played anyone. And then they played Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and they kind of got destroyed. That game maybe could have been closer if Likely doesn't fumble the ball in the end zone and all that stuff. But I just don't really know, like, people... How do I explain this? People are acting like if the Ravens get in, they're like a dark horse contender. But, like, I'm curious what they see about this team that makes them believe that. Lamar isn't playing like Lamar. Derrick Henry's not playing like Derrick Henry. They don't have an elite passing game. They don't have elite running game. They don't have an elite receiving core. They don't have a great pass rush. Their run defense is mediocre. Their pass coverage is pretty stellar. It's like, I'd say it's probably top 10, but is it like an elite defense? No, because they don't couple it with a great pass rush. They're very good in the red zone on defense, but like that's kind of more like situational. So I just don't see what people are excited about. And really, when you peel back the layers of the personnel, they have really good corners and good safeties, but the D linemen without Matabike are meh. The edge position is meh. The offensive line is meh. The receiving core it's okay. You know, like Andrews isn't the same player he used to be. Bateman hasn't been as good as last year. D-Hop is not as good as he used to be. Derrick Henry's not as good as he used to be. Lamar's not running the ball. Like, Harbaugh is a mediocre coach right now. He doesn't really bring anything to the table. Their DC is kind of below average in ore. So, like, I'm just kind of curious. Like, people look at the jerseys. They see the logo. They've been a premier team. Everyone sees them get an A in the draft every year. But I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't see it this year. I don't see it with them. I think that this is a team I thought could have been the most talented, well-rounded team in football, and they are nothing like what I expected. They have completely regressed from a talent perspective, a philosophy, scheme perspective, from a quarterback perspective. There's nothing about this team that I really recognize. Like, it's actually crazy to me. At number 17, the Chargers. I thought the Chargers played really well against the Raiders, just in terms of the run game. I thought was very effective, and Vidal played well. Herbert was efficient on his limited opportunities. I think that the Chargers are going to be one of these teams that probably find their way to get to the playoffs, even though I don't really think they're very good. And they'll probably get destroyed in the first round because of their offensive line deficiency. This is a week where I think they can really test that out, because they play the Eagles. Now, the Eagles do have a very good pass rush. I think the best thing about them right now is that defensive front in Philadelphia, right? Their run defense, though, spotty, which we'll talk about that against Chicago. But can the Chargers, like, give Herbert enough time to make those plays against this Eagles defense? Because I do think the Chargers are going to hold their own on defense. Like, the Chargers, if you can't really run the ball and force the Chargers to respect it, they're a very good defense because they have a million different coverages. They're very sound about how they play their defense, their coverage rotations, their simulated pressures. I think they're a good defense. Like, they're a top 10 defense in football, and they have a top 10 quarterback in football. And that's probably enough to make the playoffs. I think they need to run the ball, and they need to stop the run. And if they can do those things, they can surprise me. I don't think they can do those things, though, against premier teams. So that's what I'm scared about. I have them at number 17. They got a nice little confidence builder against the Raiders, but that was the Raiders. At number 16, the Bucs. The Bucs, they got a critical victory over the Cardinals, but I thought they could have lost that game. I thought that Brissett kind of outplayed Baker. I thought that the Cardinals kind of moved the ball, and they made mistakes, and they coughed it up, and they outgained, they out first downed the Bucs. They outpossessed the Bucs. It's just that the Bucs made a couple of big plays, and that was about it. But I like what I saw from Godwin. I like what I saw from Bucky. I think the offensive line should be getting a little healthier on the inside with Bredesen and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm not sold by Todd Bowles. I'm not sold by their offensive coaching or their defensive coaching. I'm not really sold by their pass coverage or their pass rush. I think they need to get Mike Evans back. They need Baker to play the way he played last year and early this year for them to win a playoff game or to be a contending type of team. Because right now, Baker's not playing the same way. They're not protecting him the same way. They're not running the ball they did last year. And then defensively, they're good against the run, but they're bad against the pass. And they just have too many flaws and too many ways to lose right now. And that's what frustrates me. I don't know if we're going to be able to win a shootout every week because their offense has been up and down. I don't know if we can win a defensive game because sometimes they give up too many explosive plays. So the Bucks, it just feels like they've lost their identity and what makes them a really good team in this league. Okay. At number 15, Jacksonville. Jacksonville is another confusing football team, and that's why I have these teams in the mediocre mid-range. Trevor Lawrence, I'm not a believer in. I did think he played solid football against the Titans, but again, it's the Titans. I do really like their receiving core with Brian Thomas, Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington, who I think is underrated, Brenton Strange, who I think is underrated. They do have good running backs, and their run game is pretty strong. But their offensive line, you can get after them. Lawrence, you can cause to make multiple mistakes in a game that cough it up and lose you a game. Defensively, I don't believe in their secondary. I don't believe in their pass defense. I do think they have a good run defense. I do like Liam Cohen. But this feels like a team that they wouldn't get past the first round of the playoffs because I can't rely consistently on their defense and I can't consistently rely on their quarterback. And that's just not a good mix. Sure, they have some skill players. Sure, they can run the ball. Sure, they do some things well, and they're opportunistic defensively occasionally. But it just feels like an okay team. And that's kind of where we thought Jacksonville would be this year, which is totally fine. But I think the biggest thing about Jacksonville is clearly Trevor Lawrence is not the franchise quarterback that you thought. And in order to go any further than this, you're probably going to need to change at that position. Because let's just say if this team had Drake May instead of Trevor Lawrence, they would probably be a contender. And if the Patriots had Trevor Lawrence instead of Drake May, they would probably be like 7-5. You know what I'm saying? So at number 15, I have Jacksonville. At number 14, Detroit. Detroit, it's a little bit of this Ravens thing, and I'm seeing this a lot this year. There is this this prior commitment by analysts and by gamblers and by critics. There is this prior, and what I mean by prior is we're looking too far back into the history of teams to give us an indication of what they'll be for the future. So Detroit is being graded as if they're the team they were last year or the year before, when they're not. They're not, right? And that's the way they've been treated all year, like the team they were last year or the year before. They don't call plays as creatively. Jared Goff isn't as comfortable. The offensive line strictly isn't as good. Their run game isn't as overwhelming, right? Their defense is the same problems. They just have better personnel, right? Their defense has the exact same problems that got their ass kicked against Washington that I preached back then. That I said, this defense is, I don't know why they keep doing this when they're getting torched every game. And it continues to persist despite better personnel. They have Aiden Hutchinson now. He's not hurt. And still, they're still the same, right? So I look at Detroit and I see a very flawed, talented football team. And people are still believing they're the same team they were 2 years ago. That's not who they are, right? You can get after Jared Goff with interior pressure. That has been something that has been prominent throughout the entire year since week 1, right? If you can slow down Jahmyr Gibbs, you can really make this offense earn everything. Now, that is tougher said than done because Jahmyr Gibbs might be the best running back in football. But if you can do that, you can really make them earn their points. They struggle to involve Jameson Williams on a weekly basis, which is very odd because he's electric, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown, he is, awesome. He's their chain mover. Now he's hurt. Sam Laporta, he's really good, but now he's hurt, right? So their offense at this current point, they just don't have a lot of talent. Right now. They've got the running backs and they've got Jameson, and they've got, if you remove Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta, you're looking at Isaac Tesla, and you're looking at Brock Wright, and you're looking at Like, I don't know. So and their interior is already poor. You know, they tried to bring back Ragnow. It didn't work out. Glasgow's hurt. Left guard's hurt. Right? So, like, Detroit's offense isn't the same, and they don't have the same level of flavor or creativity. Their defense is too predictable. So it really hurts their talent because they play way too predictable, and everyone knows it. And they don't have an overwhelming four-man pass rush because they fail to really realize that Marcus Davenport isn't the answer. And I've been preaching all these things, and the Lions have just they've reached their pinnacle already. They've reached their peak already. They need to re-diagnose, self-scout themselves, and get back to it next year. Because I think this year is kind of a lost cause. They need to come out with a fresher perspective next year. Okay? So at number 14, I think the Lions are overrated. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I just see way too many holes. Way too many holes right now with this team. Defense, way too much man-to-man coverage, not a great pass rush, mediocre run defense. They don't play to their level of talent. Offensively, you can get interior pressure. If you can stop outside runs, and their passing game right now without their weapons are just not the same. So at number 14, I got the Lions. Number 13, I have the Eagles, who I think the Eagles are about to undergo a 2023-like collapse. This is probably bold, but I do believe that to be the case. And I've seen it coming for weeks. I talked about this like in the first 5 weeks of the season. They somehow sustained a level of ability to continue to win games. And they actually had a little bit of a peak there when they were torching the Giants and the Vikings. And maybe those teams are worse than we thought. But they looked really good at moments. But there's just too much going on with this team. Offensively, Jalen Hurts is just... he's holding back their offense. He doesn't make bold decisions. He doesn't throw into tight windows. He ignores the middle of the field for a majority of the game. He really only throws a good deep ball, and he's good at not turning the ball over. But that is hurting the offense from a consistency standpoint. He's also hurting the offense from what's being ran. Everyone is blaming the offensive coordinator. Everyone's blaming the play calling, but they fail to realize that it's all based around what Jalen Hurts wants to be and do. It's a lot like Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. It's a lot like Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. You live and die based on what that quarterback wants to be and what they want to do. That's their offense that they're running. Jalen Hurts is the same way. And he just has a very simplistic view of football because he can't diagnose at the level of other quarterbacks. And he can't play in the pocket the same way that Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Drake May can. So he is limited, right? The offensive line is stellar in the pass protection department. They still are awesome. But at the same time, their run game is awful. Like, they have one of the worst run games I've seen. And a lot of it is because they just run like 2 or 3 runs and they're all out of the gun. Like, teams have just kind of solved how to shoot those runs, how to get to those runs, and how to take advantage of this personnel. They had such superior personnel in past seasons at center, at tackle, like even at guard. Like, Mekhi Becton was a massive loss to where they could just run inside zone. Like, it was ridiculous. You know, like they would run 3 runs all game. And this year, it just feels like Saquon's getting hit in the backfield like every 3rd run. Like, it's crazy. He really has nowhere to go, and he's not really the same guy that we saw last year. It hurts me to say. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are frustrated about the direction of the offense. It's the offense from last year. It's the quarterback play from last year without a historic run game. That's what it is. It's not even the real offensive coordinator problem. Kellen Moore last year could just rely on an absolutely historic run game. And maybe Kellen Moore was partly responsible for that because he understood how to get more out of the offensive line and things like that. And Saquon. But I don't know exactly because I'm not in the building, and I'm not saying that I'm like Patullo is this great coach. All I'm saying is I think there are problems beyond the play caller. Like, I don't think it would change that much, right? At least in the season, it would change that much. I think that they need to rediscover themselves. I mean, they don't have an under center offense. They don't have a play action offense. They don't have a real drop back passing offense. I mean, everything they run is RPOs, like inside zones out of the gun, slants and curls and goes. Like, They don't run anything elaborate. They don't run anything creative. They don't run anything with motion. Like, it's kind of crazy, guys. This is 2025. Defensively, I was shocked with how overwhelming the Bears were in the run game. I was shocked. And I was shocked that Vic Fangio could not adjust to it. That was even more shocking because Fangio is a great coach. And obviously, Fangio likes to base his defenses out of too high. But what we've kind of learned about Fangio this year is he's very particular about the personnel on his defense. You notice how if he doesn't have like a stellar, like they needed to trade for Jalen Phillips because their D-line with Jalen Carter and Ajomo and Jordan Davis and Uche was having a good year and Hunt, they weren't good enough already to have a modest level of production. You know what I'm saying? Like, they need a new corner because Adoree Jackson is not good enough. Like, every single area is like, they need to save this defense because they need to play exactly like this or it's not going to work. That's another thing that's frustrated me about the Eagles that I think is kind of flying under the radar is like, the Eagles defense, even if they don't have Josh Sweat or they don't have Milton Williams, they should still be really good. You know what I'm saying? And they had a real stretch the last few weeks where they've been dominant, but a lot of that was post Jalen Phillips where they traded for another ace pass rusher. It's like, how much talent do you need? Sometimes you look at the Eagles, it's like, and that's why I hate watching them, because I'm like, imagine what Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh would do with this team. Like, imagine. You know what I'm saying? Like, they wouldn't lose a game. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I hate watching the Eagles a lot of times. And then defensively, like, they just got overwhelmed. They got overpowered. They got outcoached. They got out-schemed. And my problem with the Eagles moving forward is that's going to happen a lot. And I look at the Chargers could do that. There's no question. On top of having a better quarterback, they could out-coach the Eagles. Any team they play in the playoffs, Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, McDonald, you go down the list, Schottenheimer. I mean, come on. They're going to get out-coached in every one of these games, and the team isn't executing. What are they good at right now? Like, pass defense, maybe? Like, what are they good at? Like, other than tush pushes. At number 12, I have the Colts. The Colts are also regressing and falling back down to earth, but this isn't too surprising. The Eagles are overwhelmingly talented. The Colts we kind of looked at as a Cinderella story team. Daniel Jones, what he was doing, Indiana Jones, all that sort of stuff. The offensive line, I do think, has played worse in recent weeks, but a lot of that does have to do with who they're playing, I do believe. Like, Pittsburgh, okay, they can spoil a day in Pittsburgh with a good pass rush. Houston, obviously, right? The Chiefs, okay, Spags can get you, right? But I think the most disappointing aspect of the Colts recently has been they can't run the ball the same, which has kind of been their identity all year. And I think teams have figured out if you stop Jonathan Taylor, you stop the offense to a large degree. A lot of their offense is based on Jonathan Taylor being such a great running back that they base everything off of that. Every one of their calls is based on, selling out to stop the run. And then at the same time, their defense is just getting absolutely shredded. Their defense gives up way too many possessions where it's like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 plays, 7, 6 minutes, like long, slow deaths. Like, if you're going to be an offensive team and you're going to score points and you're going to try and win shootouts, you can't have your defense on the field the entire game. You know what I'm saying? So their defense right now without Buckner, they're struggling to stop the run. Their pass rush is below average. Their secondary, despite the personnel and talent edge that they should have, Sauce is not paid off now. He's hurt. Ward hasn't been the same since coming back, and they're just not covering the same. So the Colts look extremely flawed and like a team that if they do limp into the playoffs, they'll probably be eliminated right away. I kind of feel bad for them right now. At number 11, the Chicago Bears, who I don't think are a particularly great team. I don't view them as a contender, but I really respect their coaching, and I think there's aspects about their offense and defense that I do like that are trending in the right direction. Offensively, they are a very good running game, and that scares you. And that is transferable to the playoffs. I mean, that a lot of that is Ben Johnson. Their offensive line also is stellar. It's probably the most improved unit in the NFL from last year to this year. I mean, who would have thought Joe Thuney was the best guard in football? Not me, of course. Only a Hall of Famer that's won like 10 Super Bowls. But Joe Thuney, right? Incredible. Darnell Wright, incredible. These guys deserve mention. And Swift has had a great year, and Monongai has brought them something. And now they're getting their 2 tight ends involved with Loveland and Kmet. And they do have talented receivers, DJ Moore being the most talented. I think Zacchaeus is actually pretty underrated, but they need to get Burden more of the football to me. But Ben Johnson and that run game is special, and that sets everything else up to be really, really good. Defensively, they're extremely opportunistic. Now they're getting a lot better in the secondary with health. And I actually kind of view their secondary as a top unit in the league. With Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, CJ Gardner-Johnson, notice how he goes to every team he goes to and they win. That's that type of feistiness and asshole that every team kind of needs. Kevin Byard is playing unbelievable this year, and Jaquan Brisker's really, really good. If they get their linebackers back, man, that back half of that defense is like really, really, really good, especially with Dennis Allen coaching it, where Dennis Allen's like a really good pass defense coach. I feel like he has just enough of like a coverage oriented defense with a blitz oriented defense. He has like a good mixture, in my opinion, like of creativity and soundness. He walks that line very well. I thought Dennis Allen did great against the Eagles. And despite the personnel, what might kill them is their defensive front. Their defensive front is bad. You should be able to run on them. You should be able to block them. That's going to be kryptonite for them. On top of their quarterback is not very good. Like, Caleb is not an average quarterback. He is below average. He has a 58% completion percentage. That is the worst in the league among quarterbacks that started more than 7 games. That is not good. And to be on the number 1 seeded team in the NFC and be that poor quarterback speaks to the coaching, speaks to everything else, maybe the schedule a little bit. They're going to get caught up to here in the back half of their schedule when they play some really, really good teams here. But the thing with Chicago is at least they have areas that I really feel good about. I do really feel good about their coaching tandem. I do feel really good about their offensive line and their run game. I do feel really good about their secondary. So there's areas that I can lean on. I know that Caleb's not good. I know that the pass rush isn't good, but that's still enough for me. Like, the Colts are extremely flawed. The Eagles are extremely flawed. The Chargers are extremely flawed. The Jacksonville Jags are extremely flawed. Give me what Chicago has right now and the way they're playing over those teams. At number 10, I have the Chiefs. And some people in Sing's going to say, yeah, no, the Chiefs are too high. I don't, like, the Chiefs are playing, they just beat the Colts and they lost to the Cowboys. I am much higher on the Cowboys than 99% of Earth. So I understand why they lost the Cowboys. The Cowboys are better than them. Flat, point blank, period. The Chiefs are still a good team, though. I mean, the Chiefs have a great receiving core. Mahomes is a good quarterback. He might be overrated, but he is good still. Andy Reid is still an elite coach. Spags is still an elite coach. Chris Jones is capable of dominating a game. Watson and McDuffie is a great tandem at cornerback, and they do have good linebackers. Like, they have a lot of good strengths on their team. Kareem Hunt in short yardage, Travis Kelce in the red zone on third down, like Rashee Rice. Like, they've got a lot of good players and a lot of good things about them. At the same time, though, they keep losing close games. They can't seem to get a stop in the fourth quarter when they really, really need it. They can't really seem to get a clutch drive when they really, really need it. So they're not as good in the situations. One of those situations being the end of the half and the beginning of the second half. You notice how they're really poor in that middle 8 this year? That has been a standout for me. They don't cause a lot of turnovers on defense. They don't cause a lot of sacks on defense. That's concerning to me in a Spags unit. And I don't feel like they can ever feel confident rushing 4, which really puts Spags in a bind to make them blitz to get pressure all the time. And that puts extreme pressure on their secondary. And then offensively, it just feels like they don't. These last couple of weeks, they have ran the ball better, but it doesn't feel like they can just run the ball on you all the time. Like, they definitely feel like they have some critical Achilles heels on both sides of the ball that hold them back. But that being said, I mean, I would take the Chiefs in a game for my life over every one of these teams that has been below them on this list. Like, that's the way I view them right now. And I still view them as more of a contender in the playoffs if they were to make it than the Ravens or than the Bucks or than the Bears or than the Jags. I don't think anyone can really dispute that. So at number 10, I have the Chiefs. At number 9, And I almost wonder if this is too low. I don't want my Niner bias to play into this, but I kind of think they should almost be higher than this, meaning 7 or 6 or 5. Like, the Niners are kind of surging right now. Like, they low-key just kind of smacked around the Panthers, and the Panthers just beat the Rams. And they just went to Cleveland and handily kind of beat the Browns in a place where they beat the Packers. And, like, the Browns have kind of beat everyone at home. So the Niners are kind of surging. Their offense is as good to me as any unit in the league. I think their offensive line is playing as well as any offensive line in football. And this is kind of a recent thing. Christian McCaffrey is playing unbelievable football. I know that he doesn't break away for 40-yard runs, but the amount of broken tackles, the amount of like passes to the flat, and he gets a first down out of it, the amount of option routes out of the backfield that this guy, he just picks up so many clutch first downs, touchdowns. Like, McCaffrey's unbelievable. Jawan Jennings has played much better the last month. George Kittle is probably still the best tight end in the league in his all-around game. And Ricky Pearsall hasn't really been involved, but we still know that potential exists. And Purdy, I liked how he played against the Browns. He played within himself. He understood the spot in the situation. I want to see that Purdy moving forward to make me truly believe in the potential of this team in the playoffs. If he can play with that level of presence, right? Like presence in terms of understanding like the situations instead of the erratic behavior he's shown the last year and a half, I would feel a lot better about this team. And then defensively, I know they don't have Nick Bosa or Fred Warner, but man, this defense has played really well recently. Like, their run defense is very solid. It feels like they always come up with a 4th and short stop when they need it, or a 3rd and short stop. They're very good in those short yardage situations on both sides of the ball. And that comes down to their coaching. I think that they've gotten a lot of Keon White and Clelin Ferrell. These pickups that they've had in recent weeks, I think have played really well. They've added Eric Kendricks. We'll see how that adds to their linebacking group. Their secondary, I think, is kind of rounding into form. It's what the unit that I thought they would be all year, with Lenore and Green and Stout and Jair Brown's playing great, and Mustafa. Feels like they're getting healthier. It feels like they're getting kind of more in sync. Salah's kind of got these guys tuned in. And the Niners, if they can keep playing defense like this, that's a scary team. I know they don't have Nick Bosa, so they don't have that ace pass rusher. And I know they don't have Fred Warner. They don't have that Hall of Famer in the middle, but I want to keep seeing how this defense plays. They're going to have some tough tests against the Colts and the Bears and stuff. We'll see how they perform after the bye. At number 8, the Texans. The Texans have a historic defense. And this is a season where a team like that could maybe go on a run. The Texans, I do think Stroud played really well after about the first quarter of the game last week. And I do think they've marginally gotten better running the ball from like a success rate standpoint. They don't have a lot of negative runs or 1-yard runs anymore, or no gain runs as much as they did early in the year or last year. It feels like they're successfully running at least a little bit better. Their offensive line feels like it's picking up blitzes and pressure a bit better than it did in previous campaigns. Stroud, if he does have time, that's only going to build his confidence. And we know that Stroud with confidence can be deadly. And I do think people are sleeping on their weapons. Obviously, Nico Collins is that gravitational pull alpha, but like Higgins, Kirk, Schultz, Woody Marks, these guys are all making plays. And I just think they're really playing good football at this particular time. Their defense is the best in the league. They don't really have a flaw. They're fast, they're physical, they're ferocious. They could beat the Chiefs this week in Arrowhead, something that's been very difficult for teams to do. But this defense, if they held them to 17, I wouldn't be surprised. At number 7, the Bills. Now, the Texans beat the Bills, but again, if I were to pick one team to win the Super Bowl, I'd probably still go with the Bills. So that's kind of the point here. And against the rest of the NFL, the Texans could easily lose to the Chiefs, but the Bills beat the Chiefs, just for example, right? So it's not all up to like individual matchups. After all, the Panthers beat the Rams. I wouldn't put the Panthers above the Rams. But number 7, the Bills. The Bills have a lot of injuries right now, and I think that could come back to bite them in this game against the Bengals. The Bengals are a team that matches up really well with Buffalo. They match up really well from the standpoint of they have pass run balance on offense. They have a deadly quarterback that can diagnose. They have a bad defense, but a team that can outscore the Bills. And we know the Bills defense can be a bit leaky at times. Now, that being said, the Bills do have, if you look at the AFC playoff mix, they might have the best run game, and they do have a top 2 quarterback in that mix with Drake May. So that's and then they are number 1 against the pass this year in pass yards allowed. So there are feature elements of this team on both sides of the ball in key areas, plus their experience, that it wouldn't shock me if this is the year the Bills made that run. They don't have to face the Chiefs, which has been their kryptonite most likely, right? At least until the AFC Championship, which would be played in Buffalo, okay? And other than that, like if they can just stop the run a bit and they can just make a couple plays in the pass game, the area that's really hurting me about the Bills is just their drop back passing game is really bad. Like, it is really, really bad. And it's weird because their quarterback is so good, but their receivers are like, and their scheme is just so inept. Like, they can't separate. Like, there's like no threat of the top, coming off of the defense unless there's an extension of the play. Unless there is Josh Allen roaming around and moving. That's the only time that they make a big explosive play. It's actually really not mind-numbing to me. So if they can find a way to get more explosives through the pass game and find a way to stop the run more consistently, they have at times this year. This is a Super Bowl team. But they are, just like every other team, critically flawed in a couple of areas, particularly pass catcher and run defense. So at number 7, the Bills. But they do have really, really big ingredients that allow me to see a run happening. At number 6, the Packers. The Packers, it's hard for me because I feel like they've played underwhelming football for a majority of the year. I think Love has been up and down all year. And I think there are believers in Love that always say he plays better than he did. I actually legitimately thought against the Lions he played really well. I also thought that their weapons came through. I thought Watson played great. I thought Wicks played great. I thought they actually made some plays. Now, Jaden Reed will come back. It sucks that they're missing Tucker Kraft. But they do have ingredients here. Like, I think Love is a guy that can play at a really high level in a big game. I think that they have enough balance through their run game. They have enough creativity in their offensive scheme and play calling with Matt LaFleur. And they do have a really fast pass rush and a really fast front 7 to where they can kind of like, they're flawed just like a lot of other teams in this league, but they also have some really great talent in a lot of areas and like elements of their team that make you believe they could go on a pretty good run. So, and they match up fairly well with a lot of these NFC teams. So at number 6, the Packers. At number 5, I have the Cowboys. Now, again, this is not a record video. This is a power ranking video. The Cowboys are a top 5 team in the NFL. Dak Prescott's playing like a top 3 quarterback. The top 3 quarterbacks in football have been Drake May, Matt Stafford, and Dak Prescott. Their offense, I think it might be the best in the NFL. I really do. The Rams, maybe. The Cowboys are really awesome. They can run the ball. I like Javonte more than I like Kyron. I mean, I like this O-line. I think they're probably both about the same. I love these receivers. Probably even more than I like Puka and Devontae. I love these receivers, man. Like, Pickens and Lamb are incredible. Ferguson's awesome. I like Schottenheimer's, like, simplicity, like, of his offense. It's kind of, it's a very 2000s offense. Like, it does feel very 2000s, but I really think it's effective. And then defensively, I just think they're on the rise. I think Eberflus is getting more out of this unit. I think the D-line is just so much better than everyone thinks it is. Like, they can get pressure with 4. They do occasionally blitz. They don't give up big plays as much anymore because they stop the run better. They tackle better. They flow to the football better. And they've got more of a pass rush, so it doesn't allow you to sit back there and just buy time and create big explosive chunks. So Dallas is playing complementary football. They have a great kicker. They've got a great returner. They've got a great quarterback. They've got a defensive front that's good. So if this team gets in, they are a Super Bowl threat. I actually do think the Dallas Cowboys are that good. At number 4, Denver. Denver is more flawed than a lot of the teams below them, in my opinion, but they win games, and a lot of it comes down to coaching and situational ability. Denver, it feels like their offense it's not a good offense. Like in a lot of per drive metrics, they're bottom 5 or 6 in the NFL. If you look at yards per drive, points per drive, etc. But in the fourth quarter, they come through. And then defensively, if you're trying to score a game-winning touchdown against them, they come through most of the time, right? So like situationally, they win games. And then defensively, they're top 2 in the league, top 3 in the league. They're very, very good on defense. They rush the quarterback extremely well. Not a lot of teams have been able to run on them. Washington was one of them, right? They maybe just play too aggressive for my liking. I think they send a little bit too many 5-man pressures, which leaves their corners on islands too much, right? But and they can be had because they walk that line, and that could catch them in a playoff game. Their home field is dominant. I just really don't like their offense. I don't love it from a schematical standpoint. I don't love it from a quarterback standpoint. I don't think they run the ball very well. I'm not threatened by any of their weapons. I just don't think they have enough gumption, enough offensive flavor for me to really believe they're a Super Bowl team. But they have a good enough defense, and they're good enough situationally offensively that they can kind of play with anybody, and if the game goes their way, they can beat anybody. So at number 4, I have Denver. That being said, they can also lose to feels like everybody. Number 3, Seattle. Seattle is probably the 3rd or 4th best defense in the NFL. They are a dominant run defense. They have a very good defensive front. I do think their secondary is a little overrated, but I mean, it is what it is. It's not like crazy overrated. I don't know. Greg Olson's like, this is the best defense in the league by the end of the year. I'm like, you watch the Texans? The offense, though, I think is more of the problem. I don't think if Seattle loses in the playoffs, I don't think it will be because, they're missing a corner. You know what I'm saying? I think it's because their offensive line in drop back pass is still not good. If you can stop them on early downs and don't let them throw the ball over your head, you can stop them. And I kind of think we're already seeing these leaks on the offense. The Vikings, the Rams game, the Titans for like a half. Kind of feels like Seattle's offense is slowing down. And I still feel like their receiving weapons, even with Shaheed there, who has not really done much, they're too JSN reliant. So there are just critical factors that make me believe that yes, they have the talent from like a metric statistical perspective, offense, defense, everything. They're a top 5 team in the league. They could go on a run to the NFC Championship, but at the same time, I could see them losing the first game in the playoffs. They feel like that team that I am going to have the hardest time predicting their playoff run. That's the way they feel to me. I don't know about you guys. At number 2, it's a big reveal. I have the Los Angeles Rams. That's right. The Rams are number 2. They lost to the Panthers. And I think a couple times this year, I should say, we have seen this team lose games they shouldn't lose. And that scares me if I'm a Rams fan. They have lost to teams that are inferior to them. I don't know if that is because Stafford had a bad day. I don't know if that's because the game script went the wrong way. I don't know if that's because McVay got out-coached. Maybe all of these reasons plus. I think the common occurrence has been that the teams they have lost to have found out how to move the ball against their defense. That has been the common occurrence. And I've been saying this all year, and Rams fans have kind of been saying, Mitch, you're crazy. We're great on defense, all this stuff. And it's like, well, there's this common theme. When teams can just Hankstram matriculate the ball and not make mistakes, they can score points on you. Mac Jones, Bryce Young, Jalen Hurts. We've seen it a few times this year where it's like 4-yard pass, 3-yard run, 5-yard pass, 4-yard run, etc. Keep the Rams on the sidelines, keep the possession, maybe even get a lead, force Stafford to throw the ball into a tight window every once in a while, make Stafford get antsy a little bit. That leads to some mistakes occasionally. And it kind of feels like that's how you beat the Rams, is you slowly but surely move the ball, you outpossess them, and you somehow get Stafford to press in a big moment. And that is how the Rams could be upset in the playoffs, because I think for a majority of people, they'll be the favorite to win the Super Bowl. But I could see them tripping up on an opponent that knows how to properly execute that plan. And we've seen it from the Panthers, the Niners, and the Eagles in a half this year. Okay? And even the Colts to a certain degree, but they kind of like messed it up. So the Rams are my number 2. Stafford is MVP ball. Adams and Nakua are incredible. Their run game has been unbelievable this year, by the way. And they really didn't get stopped against the Panthers. They made their mistakes. But I've seen it a couple times this year where they have simply lost games. And that would make me a little uneasy if I was a Rams fan. But my number 1 team is the Patriots. I mean, I don't even want to do this, but the Patriots are the number 1 team. I don't sit here on my high horse saying I told you, although I kind of did. But that being said, like, there's really nothing that allows you to not rank the Patriots at number 1. They've won like 10 straight games. They haven't lost since September. They've gone on the road and beaten impressive opponents. They've demolished bad opponents. They have the best quarterback in the league right now. They're winning with injuries. Milton Williams, Will Campbell, Jared Wilson, Kayshon Boutte, Ramondre Stevenson, etc. They've had injuries all over, and they've been able to do it. They're actually low-key undefeated with Christian Gonzalez. Don't know if people realize that, but they are. They have a deep receiving core. A lot of them are making plays. They have a great coaching staff. They have a great culture and belief in themselves. Their defense is seemingly getting better with every passing week. And I think especially in the back end of their defense. And they're hitting people. They are physical, which I think is a difference maker in the playoffs, in the cold. The Patriots right now are just playing the best ball. They are the most reliable team on a weekly basis. And that's why they're number 1. They aren't the most talented, right? But there's nothing they do poorly. We've talked numerous times about, is there anything this team does well? The Patriots don't do anything poorly. And that's why maybe they're number 1. I don't know. There it is, guys. Gronk, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching my power rankings for week 14. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.